What up, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of Team. Am I echoing again?
Yes.
You are.
I think it's all right.
A little bit. All right. Well, you know what, Tim? I'm going to mute here real quick.
We're still hearing him. It's all good. It's the echo of the echo. Another episode this week. Super excited to have Matt Solomon on. Why don't we do a round of intros first, and we'll Tim G. He'll go last.
Yeah. Better?
It's better.
Much more better. No echo.
Very good.
All right.
We're good.
Just give me a yell if we are. So, yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition, Team Tim. Today is July 28th, 2023. If you're all from the Northeast, New England-ish, it is like 4 million degrees with 175% humidity. I'm like roasting. So if you keep seeing me drink, I'm already on number 2 here. So, yeah, we're really excited to have Matt. Matt is like all things like social stuff, right? And we'll let Matt do a little intro. In the meantime, Uncle Jesse, say hi. How's your week? I'm a little jealous. You and Tim got the bromance going on the other day. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's been a good week. It's always good when you get to kind of get out of the office and go meet and greet some people, and especially when you get to meet Tim live and in person. We've been doing this show for months now, and it's the first time we met in person, so that was great. And my flight was delayed, but I got here. I just got home. I'm in the seat and I'm ready to go. So it's a good day.
Awesome. Yeah, and it looks like Tim, you do your little thing there. I'm gonna go check over on the socials, make sure we're kind of
awesome to see you, Jesse. So you got up at 3:30 in the morning. You've just been traveling all morning, so glad to have you on. Matt, we usually talk about ourselves, and we talk about our our employers, or you may be the employee or employer, but I'll let you go.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Matt Solomon. Some of those who may know me from before would have known me from my ID agent days. Actually, myself and my business partner Kevin Lancaster on Channel Program. Kevin was the founder of ID Agent, and I was his first employee, and I was the product evangelist. So I was a person on the road, probably at 150 conferences over 2.5 years, and really got to get to know both sides of the industry. And we scaled that from 0 to 2,000 MSPs in 2 years, and got acquired by Kaseya, and then stayed there for about another 2.5 years, and probably exited with around 5,000 MSP partners.
Wow.
Very much it felt like once in a lifetime thing, and kind of hoping to repeat that similar process, but very different thing that we launched with Channel Program. And so we're delighted to be here.
Yeah, awesome. And we're so glad to have an expert like yourself when it comes to social proof, and we'll get into all that here in a minute. But before we do, me, I want to be able to bring up the who are we, right? So I'm gonna do the quick summary every week. I put usually the guest on the spot, but Team Tim started by myself, Tim Schnur, and our favorite Uncle Jesse. The reason we're doing this is to not only bring a little bit of a comical spin, but to be able to come into the community, provide some educational resources, help your MSP shift left of boom, learn how to sell some of this stuff, learn how to grow your business, and basically take great thought leaderships from individuals like Matt and others that we've had on and others to come, and be able to build your practice in your MSP. So yeah, that was not a short-winded way, but here we are. So quite a great topic this week. We had, over 100 people that I'm aware of. And if I'm looking right now, there's 15 or 20 already watching live. So while you're here, fire your questions in the chat over there, and we'll see if we can put Mr. Matt on the spot here. So yeah, Matt, what is this social proof stuff? What the hell are we talking about?
Yeah, because we usually talk about shift left, right? I mean, you just mentioned our mission statement, but we thought this was really important, and we've learned a lot from Matt, Tim, and myself. So talk about where it all came from, right?
Well, I would say this is.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jesse.
I just want to interject something quickly. Shifting left. This is really left. I mean, this is left of left, right? But this is the most important thing.
Before you
we
shift
can't
left,
get
you actually have to
customers.
get.
We can't do anything for them.
That's right.
Right. So with
Go
ahead, Matt. We got a little audio problem from.
Oh yeah,
Jesse,
I'm good. You guys were queuing me up, I think. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, there's the broader spectrum of social media and social proof. I think a big part of what we're going to be talking about today is around reviews of companies and things like that. And so it really in today's obviously digital landscape, creating influence with product reviews, it can be really empowering for an MSP. You're able to influence individuals' decision making, and really social media just amplifies it. So when you talk about user testimonials, or where it's video testimonials, potentially there's kind of that trust that comes along with these testimonials, and then building out with specific product reviews coming from the community themselves, right? The small business owners that are giving reviews to an MSP, or MSPs giving reviews to vendors. It's the social proof that people are looking for. And I know we'll get into much broader discussions around this, but and there's going to be haters out there about like, oh, I don't care about product, or I don't care about reviews and things like that. But the vast majority of people do care. And I think that's part of the conversation that we're going to have today. Is it's not always just about what you think, it's about what other people think.
So, I mean, you went right there, right directly to the vendor stuff. We'll get to that here in a minute, but like to hear like the hater side, like I don't care about reviews. But like, when's the last time you bought something on Amazon and didn't look at a review?
Yeah.
I'll wait. Raise your hand, Matt Topper. I see you in chat. Simple yes or no for anybody that's in chat over there watching on the live stream. Simple yes or no. Have you ever looked at an Amazon review? Number one, yes or no. And number two, has it ever influenced your decision on buying a thing? I'll wait.
Yeah, I mean, what about restaurant reviews, right? Hotel reviews. Like you can just going through the list. But I think
I don't know where all the people.
He's really talking about, right? Like it is great if you're an MSP that started with one customer and you got it introduced to another customer and you almost never even had a social presence, even a website. That may be reality. That I don't think it happens very often. I mean, we certainly know a lot of MSPs. I don't think we know any MSPs that don't have a website. Yeah. I don't bump into them at conferences because they're probably the people that don't go to conferences either. But, it's certainly important though, because there are all these things, these Angie lists, Google, like we'll probably hit a list, a whole long list of them today, right? There's places where you can have negative criticism, and that will be, that'll hurt you. So.
Yeah, and I realize I kind of dove specifically into that category, but Tim Short, what do I call you? What do I call you guys on this?
T1, T2. You can call me T-Dog. That's what my team's called.
But like I'm sure we'll kind of talk about this. I mean, in terms of it's not just social proof through product reviews. It's building a perception of yourself as a thought leader, like you guys are doing this, this starts to build on itself. And there's so many people out there that are resistant to doing it still, right? And I think there's a stat that 1% of the LinkedIn users actually put out content on a regular basis.
Right.
So if you think about that from like a local level of, I'm an MSP owner and I have 100 competitors, and only 1% of those competitors is doing stuff socially and putting content out there. Like that's just such an opportunity to differentiate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you make a really good point. So as an MSP here in, hot and sticky, humid New England right now, like I know who my competitors are in the state, literally right down the street from me. And and kind of doing like taking an afternoon, doing a little bit of that research and seeing, are they on the socials? Do they have reviews? Are they, in the community in which we live in and work and want to work with those businesses, right?
Yeah.
Now, I can say, as you guys are talking, I'm just going to pull something up here, but keep chatting while I go find my screen share.
Yeah. While you're getting that, Tim, I think one thing that popped into my mind as we were talking about that is, people these days really, they crave, I mean, it's always been this way. I shouldn't even say these days, but people crave authenticity, right? And social proof is a way of showing them not only who you are and what your image, what you want them to see you as, but how others perceive you as well. And so that helps build, like Matt said, that image and that authentic nature that people want and crave. And you're going to differentiate yourself in the 1% simply by doing that on a consistent basis. So I think that's super important and a great point.
Yeah. Well, one other thing I was just going to add, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've looked up MSPs on LinkedIn and they have nothing posted.
Right.
And I just would think it's like a small business owner, because even when, like, if I was going to look up personal trainers and I went to their website, if there's like no relevant new content, I'd worry about the relevancy of that individual and like what, and so it's, just even the basic, things of just posting on a regular basis.
Even a going concern, Matt, like, are they still in business?
Well, that too. Yeah.
Right. So I did a little experiment, right? Just kind of, hold on. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do this and add that and do this. Is that what I wanted? Is that how I wanted it? That's what I wanted.
Google Maps.
And so I did a little experiment on my MSP, and I searched for IT services in Portsmouth. Sure, a bunch came up, but when we look at like one review, 6-1, right, 6, Vital Tech, our MSP, we've got 15 reviews, right, and those reviews are 5-star, right? And so when we think about our buyer, when we think about our prospects as an MSP, they're going to go look at this stuff, right? Yeah. They're going to go, figure out, do you have a presence? Are you there? So who's this LinkedIn user? What's this question here?
Anonymous, but
skipping one of the most important opportunities. I don't know who the LinkedIn user is, but you Jesse, maybe you want to comment a little bit on like that part too.
Yeah. So, in my business,
are you muted or am I?
I can hear him.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I was talking about this at the conference last night. We're just chatting with some MSPs, and they're asking, well, what do you do? And I say, okay, I'm a consultant who helps MSPs build security programs, right? I come in, help them build a holistic security program, teach them how to fish, and then, right off into the sunset. So they're like, so how do you get clients? And I said, LinkedIn. And they kind of looked at me like I was crazy. Like, you don't do anything else? I said, no, I post daily on LinkedIn, and I try to attend webinars, and I try to be a thought leader in the space, and I use reviews. And that's how I do my customer acquisition. Right. So
was I completely on mute that whole time I was talking?
No,
no.
I don't know. I think there's like a timing thing or something. But changing a little, shifting, Matt, channel program, talk about like the genesis of the idea. And I know there's obviously a social media angle here as well. We don't usually, we try to keep it a little bit product agnostic, but your idea, and not just your idea, you have co-founders that work with you. What were you trying to achieve specifically for MSPs, right? Like,
sure.
I know we're coming up one level, kind of like the vendor landscape here, but talk about, was this something you thought about, like what's happening in the MSP market, what's happening in the vendor market, what's happening in another market for all we know, but
well, the nice thing is, I mean, we are an agnostic community, probably the most agnostic community that exists in the space, to be honest. The genesis came from when Kevin and I, and we exited separately from Kaseya post-acquisition, again, a couple years into it. We were both doing consulting and getting approached by vendors all the time, asking the very same question, which was, if I don't have $2 million to market and be at the events, which are extremely expensive for vendors, how do I make a name for myself? and it wasn't an easy answer. So channel program actually started more on the premise from the vendor side, but I'll explain the MSP side of it here in a second. So really what we launched with was this idea of, well, why don't we bring on 6 to 8 vendors in a virtual capacity, right, kind of in COVID, and everybody gets 7 minutes on a main stage. You know, it's not like you're just sitting in the corner of a back booth. You actually get main stage time no matter how big or large you are as an organization. And the value prop to the MSP was, hey, you get to attend this anonymously and kind of hear from these vendors in a safe environment and hear from emerging vendors like yourselves who may not have that same stage time at a various, you know, name XYZ event. And so that's literally what it launched on. And then it started, you know, as we kind of started finding our North Star, the MSP value prop started getting into, we wanted to create a place for MSPs to evaluate their technology stack through peer validation and product reviews. So instead of, you know, getting anonymous feedback on a Reddit and, you know, kind of having these like all these different conversations in all these places on Facebook, et cetera, we wanted to bring, you know, like historical record of here's what all these MSPs feel, how they feel about XYZ product. And you can make your decisions based on that validation. And again, you have to have your name on that in order to do it. And then we started looking at all the resources that MSPs have to get in millions of different places and trying to bring them into one place. So it's almost like I almost say like we're trying to make MSPs lives easier. So from a technology standpoint, evaluating the technology stack, we brought all of the industry events into a single consolidated calendar down to like a webinar level. So if you want to know what's happening in the space, our industry calendar is like none other. It gets down to those thought leaderships, the webinars and things like that, which you would never be able to get in a single place unless you're on a vendor's email campaign. And what we're evolving into, and we're going to be launching this on August 1st, so I'm kind of giving you a little preview, is going to be the first place where you're going to be able to visualize your stack, start being able to see what's potentially missing in your stack and compare it, versions 2 and 3, start comparing it based on the scores that those products have in our platform.
That's
and compare
awesome.
it against you know, others. Yeah, so
Awesome.
we're pretty excited about where we're headed.
It's
Hey,
funny,
I
man. I wrote a quick LinkedIn, I think a couple days ago, and they were talking about like innovators and just the, you know, the channel landscape and how vendors are getting acquired. And I think I had a comment. I think the last comment was like, you know, it's really hard for small companies to like get a foot and start and like actually get a spark, right? Like it's like, how do you get the money without like having product market fit and whatnot? And I was like, Pitch It's great because like it's low cost, and you guys obviously also work with Pitch It. You guys are hosting the finals. But yeah, as you said, channel program is just another place where it's like not $45,000 to have a booth or whatnot, right? So you know, you're another avenue that's basically bringing new innovation into the space. Because in absence of the channel program, of like the Pitch It program, right? Like it's just very difficult to get, you know, new ideas or new products. You know, Compliance Risk IO and Vello, you know, where I used to work. You know, so it's been great.
Yeah, speaking of Pitch It, you were talking about the events calendar, and
which is awesome.
And I'm like, why is Pitch It not here?
It's gonna be. It'll be on there.
Wait a minute, I just blasted this out to all my yes, full transparency.
And he also has if you're a vendor, Matt also has in January or December, he has where all the conferences come on and pitch their conference to the vendors.
Right.
That was a great 2-hour show, Matt. Just kind of like ins and outs, and you know, what do you get, like, you know.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that and Tim, those will go on. We were just finalizing some stuff, but and I just messaged Caitlin the reminder. But that was, I forget we called it. I mean, we called it the VCon, was like conferences for conference people who put on conferences, and it was just a play on words. But yeah, we're really the only agnostic community that could even pull something off like that. And our belief, look, we're not like competitors with anybody like one-on-one, like one-to-one. But when you're competing for vendor dollars, you have some level of competition, I suppose.
Right.
But our philosophy was, you know what goes around comes around, and we're not a replacement for in-person events, so we don't consider it competitive with us. We know we're a piece of a larger pie, and you can't put all of your money in in-person events. I think we all learned that during COVID. So our approach has been much more holistic and kind of like, let's just keep giving back to the community. And it's really fun. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, Paco LeBron is doing an event called MSP Unplugged. It's their 4th year, but they're a smaller conference in the scheme of like
about that, Tim.
Yeah. But that's an example of, like, we gave exposure to him, and he just told me, like, there's a vendor that he's signing, because of that event. And so, that's the stuff that all comes back to you eventually.
Right.
So I want to stop real quick here and just say, for MSPs now, I'm pretty sure people listening got excited if they didn't know about channel program, right? If they didn't know about it. So think about what that's doing for you as an MSP on the flip side. If you're doing the same thing for your business, right? Take and flip that excitement and put yourself in the customer's shoes there. And that's what the power of Social Proof does for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Jesse, I'll just mention, we are a free resource for MSPs, and I'm going to answer this because I'm going to get this out of the vendors paying the bills, because we get questions all the time about that. That's how we've tried to build this. I mean, will we have some premium features at some point? Probably, that MSPs can buy into, but for the vast majority, I mean, currently everything that is available to MSPs is free.
So Matt,
I'm gonna jump in here, since I know.
Go ahead.
We've been talking about the vendor part of channel program. I wanted today's session to not be totally about channel program, but we're here, we're in the throes of it. So I'm going to put on both hats. I'm going to put on my MSP hat before I was a vendor. And I'm somebody that does spend a lot of time looking at social proof. Like, I spend a lot of time when I'm buying a product looking at the Wirecutter, G2, Amazon. I spend a lot of time researching why I should pick a product. What have others said about that product? And as an MSP, we're like, Matt, like, don't knock Reddit, but until channel program, like, I had no place to go to be able to do that, to get those, trusted peers in my MSP community telling us how good or bad a product is based on a review, right? And so now I'm going to put my vendor hat on and be like, okay, from a vendor perspective, like, it's really good for me to be able to see what my customers are doing, what they like, what they don't like, what they're struggling with. Why did I only get how many times do we talk about CSAT and NPS, like the scores of our tickets and the, red, yellows, greens of our tickets from our clients, right? As an MSP community, whether I'm a vendor or I'm an MSP, we're looking at that data. Our clients are looking at that data. And for you as an MSP to build out your program to get those reviews for you, like, hold on, wrong screen. I'm going to go back and share the other one, but it's highly important for you to be able to do that. I'm going to go back and share that while somebody else fills in here for a second.
Yeah, I mean, think about, like, a lot of times, like, someone mentioned Reddit in the comments. Don't knock Reddit, Matt.
Yeah, and I'm not a Reddit hater. I just want
to it's got incredible eyes, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about some of the channels, Matt Topper was on, who I call him the Satoshi Nakamoto, right? The Bitcoin of the unknown founder of our /MSP, right? On Reddit, right? Which is a huge community. And a lot of the conversations are about vendors, and a lot of the conversations are also not about vendors. Like, I mean, vendors are there to solve problems, and people are on that channel to talk about problems, right? Or like, or opportunities for that matter. It's usually about problems, or bad customers or legal disputes or, vendors being down or whatnot. But, it's the same thing. Like, there's so much critical mass, and the fact that there's, what is it, 50,000, 100,000 people or something like that. I mean, there's quite a lot of members of that one particular channel. So I did promise Matt, and you being such a, being in the space for so long, as an MSP, like, where are some of the places like they should be active? What are some of the places that they should be aware of? Just kind of like trolling out there to make sure that they're not getting hit with negative comments. Like, do you have other places one level down, right? Because I think our / MSPs, like MSPs talking to each other. What about like, where do customers talk about MSPs, or do they not? Like,
well, that's an interesting thing, because and I've always, in a lot of the Facebook groups, there's a lot of chatter back and forth, and a lot of it can be very negative towards vendors, and I always try to remind MSPs two things. One, vendors are human beings, and like a lot of us are just trying. Like when I had I'll put my ID agent hat on. Like when somebody would complain about something on social on the weekend, that's time away from my family that I'm now like, I'm like engrossed in it, because I actually really care, and so do like our employees, and it actually affects everybody over like a weekend. I'm just giving that as an example. And most of them are just based on miscommunications. Now, there's totally legitimate gripes that people have, but I would just say, like, explore as many ways you can connect to a vendor and have a discussion not on social before blasting them, because they are people at the end of the day behind a lot of that, and those are the employees that feel it the most, not the overall organization. But as far and that I'm aware of, there isn't some forum for small businesses to talk about MSPs that I'm aware of. Tim, maybe you feel otherwise, but
Google Maps, right? Like,
there's reviews, right? But there's not like, I don't think there's a bunch of small businesses locally getting together and talking smack about. They're not saying Vital Tech Services versus Geek Tech Systems. Like, that's not a common thing, I don't think, in small businesses. But you absolutely obviously need to be aware of what reviews are being put out there. But in terms of where you need to be, so you need to be around wherever your customers and prospects are hanging out. Like, I did it a couple of years ago. I didn't love having to transition my Facebook page into more of a work page, but that's there's so many damn MSPs on Facebook, and that was my target audience. So I had to start, friend requesting every MSP and separating my content of like personal content and MSP content, because that's where they are, and so you got to go where they are. That's the bottom line.
So I do have some very unique thoughts about, as an MSP, meeting my customers where they are. Like, yes, I know I posted my own question here, right? I have the power to do so, but because I wanted to talk about this for a second, right? So one of the things that's been really successful in our MSP is starting to build online communities on Facebook, on Nextdoor, the Nextdoor app, and the Alignable app. If you're not familiar with them, Google them. I'm not going to continue to plug them. But what we did was we started a Facebook group called, New Hampshire Business Owners, for lack of better words. In fact, that's actually the name. And we began to kind of get that out there in front of New Hampshire business owners. And now I think we're at the 5,000 members.
Wow.
So and I actually have 6 different Facebook groups for the MSP, narrowing that down. I live in Portsmouth business owners, Manchester business, narrowing that down to the niche, because that, as an MSP, that's where my customers are. And you know what they're doing when I'm getting those prospect calls? They're like, hey, I saw your Facebook page, and hey, I saw you had lots of reviews, right? Yes, we talk a lot about LinkedIn, but let's face it, many of us MSPs on the smaller side are going after John's Donut Factory. And those John Donuts factories are the 2 to 3 to 5 people companies, and they're all on Facebook talking about their donuts. So why not invite them into your niche Facebook community and provide them help and services, because what they're going to do is they're going to look at your profile and they're going to look at the reviews on your profile.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to follow that up and just say something similar. Is, again, this is where I talk about having a really well-defined ICP or a couple ICPs, right, as an MSP. So you want to understand what your clients are. I just was having a conversation about this last hour with someone who had some questions on it, and saying, hey, for example, let's just say it. We want to target financial services firms that are under 100 users with a chief compliance officer in-house and 0 to 2 IT people, right? Because we know that they are serious about compliance. They have a bunch of new things coming up with these SEC regulations, and they're understaffed as IT people, and they don't have the budget because they don't have the enterprise budget because they're smaller. So now what are their pain points? Then developing customer personas for the chief compliance officer, for the chief operations officer, and then starting to find out where they're asking their questions, whether it's LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, Reddit, other places. There's some invite only VC groups in Reddit, and starting to go there and just be helpful and post subject matter that helps, and without really seeking anything in return. Those kinds of things, as you do them, are really going to start to generate you and position you as a leader, so that when you do start your cold outreach, then they're kind of warmly introduced to you in a way. So that's just, like you said, Tim, to kind of piggyback off of that.
Jesse, remember Lisa Shore yesterday? Tim, you may know her, Rhode Island, a big MSP. She was talking about, and this is another totally tangent topic of labor, finding good people good ITs to work at your MSP. They have a big affiliation with the community college, and a path and an internship and a knowledge, right? Like that's also giving them exposure, right, to the community, right? They're like, oh, like this, there's plenty of like charity things as well, and volunteer things, and you see those posts on LinkedIn and Facebook, right? But also that exposure in the community, if your MSP is local, as opposed to being like, Jesse, you're talking more on some of the larger firms, but
right,
all those different tracks, right? Like, what are legal services in the tri-state area, or so clearly where we need to go. The one statement I made earlier in the week was like, how do we deal with negative feedback? And Matt may have some good advice here, and Jesse probably does as well.
I'd like to just go there too.
Yeah. So, and I was thinking about this, and it plays perfectly into that. I was thinking about like going back to that statement I made, where there's going to be some people who say they don't care about reviews. Tell me you don't care about reviews when you get a 1-star review, and how quickly you move to try to fix that situation, and tell me if you really don't care about reviews. So it's interesting, and I kind of dreaded it. I knew it was going to happen at some point where a vendor got a 1 or 2-star review, right? It's not fun. It's not fun getting that, but it's going to happen. And so one of the things we did, and I'll explain kind of how you can also react to it, but anytime there's a 1 or 2-star review, we kind of have this 48-hour buffer where I actually reach out to the vendor and try to facilitate a conversation between the MSP and the vendor. And a lot of times it does change the entire dynamic, because again, we're human beings. We get on a call. There's been a miscommunication. The MSP may have done it in jest in that moment, and they were just fired up. So one is, get that person on the phone as quickly as possible to help try to remedy that situation. And the other thing is, don't just ignore. And if you have the ability to respond to review, like let's just say maybe something's not fixable. That is totally possible. The MSP, your small business won't get on the phone with you, whatever, and it's not fixable. Don't just leave that review blank with no response. At least provide some type of response that would, warrant somebody saying, okay, at least they care, because you can see it all the time on Yelp. I when I'm looking at restaurants and I see some negative reviews, you take it all with a grain of salt. But when I see no response from management on all these negative reviews, I'm like, oh, they clearly don't care at all about their customers if they're not even willing to respond in some way. And so I think that's important. Communicate, reach out, but then also respond.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll piggyback on that and say absolutely. First thing I would always tell my people is you got to call and you got to listen. Okay, so
what was my acronym last week? WAIT, which is why am I talking? Thank you, Kyle. Somebody else. It wasn't me that came up with it. I'm not taking credit. I think it was our friend Kyle. But wait, why am I talking?
Yep. It's a sales technique there, right? Is what. But let me take a step back here. I'm thinking about three things at once. So I took years ago at Secure 360 here in Minnesota, I took a crisis management course at the conference, and it was a great course. And a couple things about that stuck with me, as they say, the victim decides when they're not a victim anymore. You can't decide that for them. Okay. That's number one. So you keep that in mind. Number two, they want to know that their pain or their suffering that they went through is making a difference, and that their complaining is going to change something. Right. And then they decide when it's over. Right. So knowing those three things, going into these and talking and saying, okay, let's talk. Okay. Let me hear you out. Why is there this 1-star review? Why are we at odds here? What can I do to fix it? And again, shut up and let them talk. What do you want? They want something. What do you want? Let them tell you what they want. Okay. And then finally saying, okay, I've heard what you want. Here's what I'm prepared to do. And then, and working with them to try and come to an agreement, and talking is the most important thing. Now, to Matt's point, if you come to a point where they're going to leave the 1-star review up and they're just being completely unreasonable, which does happen. I'd say I could account that when, as an MSP, there was probably 90% of it was things that we could have done better and things that we fixed and came to agreements with customers. But there were those very small few where the client was completely unreasonable and left a bad review. And the way to respond to that, again, it goes back to changing and doing something about it. So if you did fail the customer, I think clearly stating that and clearly stating what you've done to improve so that won't happen to anyone else goes miles. So okay, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, we had this, they're right. We've dropped the ball in this way, and we're going to change our systems to ensure that this doesn't happen anymore going forward. Can go speak volumes for when people are reading that. It's that authentic piece that comes back to it again. So yeah, those are some techniques that I've used in the past.
Yeah. And, I tend, and this is probably something that I'm not aware of in channel program, which maybe it is for the paid people, but like in my MSP, or even a compliance risk, when I get a Google review, I'm always trying to make sure I go back to that review and at least post something, reply to them with like, oh my gosh, whatever. Like, so others going forward can see, like, we are active in our business. We care about what we're doing. We care about our end customers. And if we screw up, we want to fix it. Right. So negative reviews can both, they can be a blessing in disguise. Right. Because somebody might have a bad day. Who knows? And you just happen to be the vendor, the MSP, the whatever that they took it out on. While taking the high road, like we tend to like to do, maybe they come back and are like, and I've seen this happen in Amazon too. Like they'll come back and be like, yeah, you're right. I had and then having that in the public domain where the reviews are, where, customer went ape shit. We responded, we worked it out. Customer realized I was just having a bad day, or we actually did screw stuff up and owned it. Right. And, put it out there. So, I get, bad reviews all the time. People don't like me because I'm, too straightforward. But, that's who we are. And I try to give an opportunity to make right where right is due. And in the long run, I mean, Matt, you can attest to that. Like, you're Caitlin, who we love. Like we've had our chances of our little nuances, right? Like, right. And granted, that wasn't all public, but the point that I'm trying to make is that we own it, right? If I screw up, and if there's a review out there that says you screwed up, I'm going to own it, right? And I'm going to do what I can to remedy it. And to Jesse's point, sometimes you just can't make everybody happy.
No, and the very first one with the very first 1-star review we got, not us, but a vendor. I mean, we did remedy it. Well, we got them together and they saved the contract. And the guy pulled the one. So not only did he pull the review, they saved a contract that was well worth more than they were paying to be part of our platform. So it was a pretty cool, just like overall win. But the only last thing I would leave on this is, practicing empathy. Right.
Yep.
And the old strategies it's a negotiation strategy, but I think that it also plays in with empathy is mirroring somebody, right? Like Chris Voss always talks about mirroring what somebody's saying, and so I think if you practice those, you can get people to hopefully a reasonable place. But again, not everything's solvable, but you try to build from it. And I think, Jesse, you gave perfect advice. If it's not solvable, what to do with it.
Yeah, it's what is it, like hate isn't the opposite of love, and differences. So like at least they're passionate to go on there and give you a negative review, right? Like they want something, right, Jesse? They want, they still care enough. They're not just like writing off the vendor. I mean, they may be locked into a long-term contract. So it's a venue for it.
I would always start that, they know why you're calling them. And you say, okay, so tell me what needs to happen to make you happy.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Like, all right, fine, I screwed up. What's going to make it right?
Yeah, can I give that to you? And then I'll listen. Can I give that to them? And if I can, I'm going to do it, because that's the shortest path to moving forward, right?
Yeah. So we're coming up on about 15 minutes left here. We've talked a lot about, the importance. We've talked a lot about, negative versus positive, both from the vendor side with channel program, from the MSP side, I shared some of our stuff. I want to get into like, all right, as an MSP, how do we do this?
Yes.
How do we operationalize this, right? And I've got a lot of ideas, but I'm going to let others kind of chime in before I, tell you my secret sauce.
So they're not at my current company. Former shop had some degree of automation to pick up like on keywords, to pick up on your name, right? Like just kind of trolling using if this then that. Tim, I think you might have mentioned that before, right? Like some kind of automation that's trolling that. It's also, we didn't talk about this yet, but how quick you need to respond, right? Like Matt, if things dwell there for a while and you get a bad review and you address it 30 days later, damage probably done. So the timeliness of that response is the same as incident response, right? I mean, so it's that was one thing I thought was really cool, and I've tried to do some of that at other places as well, right? Like where can you be out there just like using some of these automation tools to pick up and search and make sure that you get the alert, right? So you can have that face to face, and you can answer that call, who's clearly a impassioned person to try to get something out of you, as Jesse said. Like I'm listening now.
Yeah, but so Tim, what I think you're talking about is finding automated ways to make sure that we're in the know about when things are mentioned about our MSP or whatever, right? And I'm specifically asking, I'm an MSP. Maybe I don't have a Google presence. Maybe I don't have a Facebook, or I'm not on the I don't even know where the hell to start, but this conversation has convinced me I need social proof. What do I do?
But I can jump in on a little bit of this. So again, you'd have to, I think individually, everybody has to figure out where the collective would be talking about companies like yourself, like an MSP. I know Google reviews is probably seemingly the most common one that I'm aware of for MSPs specifically. So I'll talk to like strategies in terms of like, how do you get reviews from your current customers? Because a lot of people are very uncomfortable asking.
Exactly what I'm asking, because I have a process in place for Vital Tech.
All right, I'll give you a couple ideas on how to do it. So there's straight up just asking, obviously. So if you guys a lot of MSPs do QBRs, that's always a great opportunity, and you could automate it. so you don't have to put them on the spot on the call per se. Right after your QBR, it could be, you know, you could have an email that goes out, you know, how did we do on our QBR? And if you thought we did a great job, please leave us a review, you know, and don't be afraid of a small little reward. You're not paying them off. They're not going to just leave you a review, like a good review, just because you gave them $50. They're just going to take the action item. And a lot of people talk to me about like being uncomfortable rewarding, but I'm telling you, I just moved to Austin from Washington, D.C., and our moving company incentivized me to give them a review. There is a 0.0% chance I was going to leave them a review, even though they did a great job. It just didn't even cross my mind. I wasn't thinking about it. And as soon as they offered me $50, I was like, all right, because they did a great job, I'll go leave them a review. So it does work. So you could do like quarterly campaigns around it. You could have some fun with it. The QBR thing is, I think, a pretty good idea. We see, I think like Mail Protector might do this. They put in all of their customer success managers, and this could be the technicians for MSPs. They have in their email signature, it's kind of like a reminder to offer a review or things like that. So the other piece, you can, once you have a review, like put it out on social. Take the best part about that review and use Canva and put it in a social, a social post. And then also
for step 2.
All right, sorry.
And I want Jesse and Tim to both chime in on this, but I'm going to give you a Vital Text secret sauce. Matt, you said step 1, right? And that is just ask.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't have to be hard, right? In fact, when this is done, I will post in the comments the email template that I use for my MSP clients. Now, the how, there's a couple of ways, right? So if you don't have a Google page, go set one up. Like it's minutes worth of work. It's only going to help you in the long run. Go do it. Now, once your Google page is set up, there's actually a link that you can click on and say, share. Like all the platforms do this, right? So whatever the platform, I'm going to suggest you start with Google. Probably Facebook after that, and then the other communities, LinkedIn and whatnot, on where your clients are. I will share my email template in the show notes on LinkedIn so that you have it to use it. That's for getting the social platforms. We also take this one step further, and we use an app to get video reviews from our clients. And the video reviews, you bet your damn ass, I incentivize them with a $25 Amazon gift card because I want to be able to use those videos. Now, I don't tell them what to say. I don't guide them to say the best things about me, but I'm getting video content and I'm paying them $25 for their time, not $25 for their opinion. Right. And then the video pieces you can use everywhere. And I'll share that little secret sauce in the thread on LinkedIn later on here.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to say is make sure you're trying to get video social proof, right? That's the most powerful social proof. And there's some really great platforms out there now. You can just Google video social proof that make it super easy. Again, that you can automate after a project or something like that, fire it off. But I'm going to take that a step further. And what I've implemented in the past that was very successful was to, as part of a project, have an independent review, an impartial review, because a lot of times what I'll see the mistake made is the project manager or somebody who's been working with the client says, hey, we'd like to get a review. And there might be hidden baggage there that the client has never brought up. You just don't know. I found that having an impartial party come in and do the review after the fact, kind of as a separate piece, really helps the client open up and be more open to it. So, we say it's our quality assurance program, and we had someone separate who was an admin person who would call up and say, hey, and they would get a notification, right? The project closes out, they get a notification, so-and-so, here's the details of the project, please call them up and do the post survey. Hey, it's your typical NPS. Like, how did you feel about it? And, and then don't ask them for the review in that meeting, then review those results and then you can send out the ask for a review there. So you process that all out and automate that, and it's almost no effort once you've built it in. But once it's there, then you can really start getting good reviews from current clients. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's the exit interview, right?
Yep.
It's and you can tell from the exit interview whether or not it would be a good candidate for your review program, right?
And I think the other thing that works really well is more of like a guerrilla tactic, but I always liked the idea, and what worked well is training your employees that this is how we make money, and then incentivizing your employees, because reacting quickly to a positive comment is just as important as a negative one. Because if the customer's in that mood feeling good about what you've just done that day, you want to know about that and call and ask them for a review, right? So we would say, okay, if a customer says something that's, a rave, get that to X person, it was like an inbox that would trigger a workflow that would notify the QA person to go reach out to them and be like, hey, we heard you were really happy. Would you mind leaving us a review? So you do that in the moment, and you catch them on that upswing, and you're gonna see your reviews go up by doing that.
Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, right? So when I leave a review on something, and that product, that vendor, that whatever takes my review and puts it on their website or puts it on their Facebook, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, look, they shared my review, right? And I'm going to share it. And so, it gets that whole interaction of that social well-being across everywhere,
Yeah. Can I give one tip here? And then also, Tim, can I mention a resource for video testimonials? Or you don't want?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, so we use this one called Vocal Video. Could not be easier. I mean, it really just cues you up really easily. We're not paid by them, just telling you. But one thing I would give, because I think this mistake can happen. Sometimes people mistake testimonials and case studies. And so my point is, and you could have something become both, but a testimonial, you got to think about like keeping them to 60 seconds or less, I believe. I just don't think people have there's going to be exceptions. And those I would say you put on a more of a case study page, but testimonials got to be more quick thinking. Cause I'd love as a buyer, like if I'm about to go buy a pool, I want to hear probably from three customers. And I got you're gonna have my attention for 60 seconds on each customer. I'm not watching a 5-minute video from one person. That's just too much. Maybe if I like what they said, I'll go watch a longer one, but I keep those testimonials short.
Yeah, and so and again, I keep saying I'll share my secret sauce. I have very pointed questions when I ask for a review. It's, would you do it? Yes or no? Here's the link, and it's very pointed. Like, name one problem I solved in your business in 30 seconds or less.
Yep.
Name one thing you like. It's very pointed on what we ask, so that we do get that 60-second clip.
Yeah.
All right, so we got about 7 minutes left. I could probably talk this stuff all day long, because I hate to use the word gamifying, but it's not. It's me, I'm a social guy, and I love being in the community as much as I can, and helping the MSPs. Like, number one, realize the importance of the social aspect of social selling. Number two, how to go about doing that doesn't feel gross, but is genuine, right? Does anybody have any parting words, Mr. Uncle Jesse?
So it starts to overlap as well, Tim, before you go to final words. This just whole like performance management, how am I doing? What things could I be doing better? Right. Like, unfortunately, just social, it's out in public. And sometimes some of those comments are like constructive, right? So how do you get someone to make those same comments internal as opposed to being publicly listed on a social forum, right? So this is probably a whole nother episode, right? In terms of just like, how am I doing? Like, how do I get feedback from the customer? Am I giving them surveys? Am I getting like nudges? How can I make my service better? What can I do better, right? So they intersect though, right? I mean, to some degree. And if you're having those conversations on an ongoing basis, like they may not end up on being posted socially. You'll get them internally, and you can be more selective, and you're promoting the things that are obviously a positive aspect, case studies or testimonials. So I just wanted to mention that, but keep going, Tim.
No, I'm good. So Jesse, winding down the last 5 minutes, parting words, thoughts?
Yes. Yeah. Parting words is, I'll look at it from my angle, right? The full stack operations perspective. Getting social proof and using social proof is part of a full stack, full line of sight operations approach. So it starts with your ICP that's focused and talking to your specific customers' pain points and priming them for a good review through your directed and focused approach to how you approach the project process, the service process, the billing process, and then the account management process, right? And having automation pieces within that and touch points within that to be able to generate and capture the best high volume of reviews that you can throughout that life cycle. And so I think having it built into your operations or your standard operating procedures is really important. It's not just a thing like go ask. I mean, you should ask, right? It should be both, but it should be an operationalized process. I think that really helps build the win rate for those reviews.
Gotcha. And what about you, Tim? Parting words before we pull up Matt and the rest of us?
Well, I'll probably steal yours. Just ask, right? Like, but also what's the opportune time to ask, right? Like a positive QBR you mentioned, like if the customer genuinely comes to say like, thank you, you're doing a good job with our business, do not miss that opportunity, right? So, because that one's going to be probably a pretty good glowing review. But yeah, no, I learned a lot today, so I'll cede my time.
and Matt, Mr. Social Proof himself, with the whole platform for vendors and MSPs with Channel Program. Parting words on Social Proof.
Well, it's about validation. It's giving people the warm and fuzzies when they're looking at you. And I don't. This is such a left field example, but I'm going back to, if we haven't been able to convince you that reviews and these types of things matter. I'm starting to think about the example. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, I'm sure you are, like the best doctors awards and the best lawyers and things like that. They're generally complete BS, but people participate in them and they matter to the users. And so it just shows you the importance of some type of validation. This is totally off of a bit, but there's a show called Dr. Death. And it's about this doctor. Yeah. But in the documentary, the woman says, but he had a best lawyer's plaque or a best doctor's plaque. Right. So I'm just saying, like, it's a psychological thing. It does matter to people. I know it's a very left field example, but
no, it's a great example.
And the only thing I'll just leave you, as far as Channel Program, again, to the MSPs that are out there, it's an opportunity for you to give your version of the accounts of the product you work with. We do reward you for your time with $15 Amazon gift cards up to your first 3 reviews. So I would encourage you, if you have a stack of products and that you want to review, you can let the community know how you feel.
Yeah, vote for compliance risk. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So this has been a really great session. We're coming up on the 3 o'clock mark. Tim stole my thunder on just ask, just do it. So I'm going to leave with a little anecdote, and I'm going to get a little vulnerable and a little personal, because I think, Matt, you touched on this a little bit, right? And not to get too deep into my background and my stuff, but validation is something that's important to me as a human, right? It's important to me as a business. It's important to me as a lifestyle. Getting that validation because I had daddy. And no, because I'm teasing, sort of, but not really, but teasing. The reality is that as an MSP, I want to know from my customers, am I doing what you're expecting of me? Are you happy with what I'm doing as an MSP for you? By the way, as a vendor. Because if we're not, and we're not hearing that feedback, both positive and negative, we cannot make adjustments to better serve you, our current customers, and our future customers.
Yep.
So I'm going to suggest to every MSP listening right now and those coming after the replays, go to channel program, sign up anonymously, leave your reviews, get your 15 doll hairs, and then on August 29th at 9 a.m., come listen to my pitch and vote for me. Oh, sorry.
Oh, by the way, is that happening on channel program?
Yeah, it is happening on channel.
Greasing the,
a little bit. No. Obviously, Matt, we appreciate you. We appreciate what you're doing for the MSP community, allowing them to have a voice in the products that they use, and allowing them to build upon each other's voice, and allowing us vendors to learn from them on how we're doing, getting the pulse and temperature, and being able to, adjust accordingly. So look at that, 3:01. We'll end the last 30 seconds for Jesse and Tim to talk about next week, because I'm going to be at ChannelCon. Hopefully I'll see you all at CompTIA next week. So Tim, Jesse, what's up for next week?
Same time, same place. The guest is yet to be announced. So
yeah, surprise guest or guests still being figured out here.
All right. Well, we'll have that out over the weekend. Yeah.
If I can get like connection on the airplane, then maybe I'll join you by the airplane. You can fly home from Vegas with me.
That'd be awesome. You've tried that in the past. Weddings or
wedding will work. It kind of works. All right. So, hey, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time. This ends this week's show. Stay tuned next week, 2:00 Eastern time, with half of Team Tim and always Uncle Jesse. This is Team Tim. Have a great weekend, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.